right. This story is about game theory and game theory as it applies to what I've been doing in my life. A story I didn't tell yet on this series is about games I used to play in high school, scavenger hunts. I used to put on these elaborate scavenger hunts for my friends, um, where I would create complex situations across the town where I lived, where people would have to they would get clues, and they would read the clue, and then they would jump in the car and they would go somewhere. And back then there was like payphones. And so the payphone would ring because I had timed it so that there was another group somewhere else that called that phone. And then they had to read a message to the person. And inside the phone book, there was like a note, like on a certain page, and I don't know, all kinds of stuff. And I used to plan these elaborate scavenger hunts for people to play with a model of game theory. And I just looked this up. I had never looked this up before, but this is a definition of game theory. Game theory is a branch of mathematics and economics that studies decision making in situations where the outcome depends not only on one's own decisions, but on the decisions of others. It involves understanding strategies, predicting opponents' moves, figuring out the best course of action, the potential choices of others. And game theory is used in various fields like economics, political science, psychology, biology, to analyze competitive situations where the outcome is affected by the actions of different participants. And I will add, this is every interaction with another human being. Every interaction with every person is based on these ideas of game theory. Is it worth it, or is it not? Or how does it help me later? Or how does it hurt me now? Or all the combinations of all the things that people are doing to try to maximize their positions in different ways. And I mentioned I was doing these scavenger hunts when I was a kid. I was probably 16 and 17, probably 15, 16, 17. And I was doing it to learn. I didn't know about game theory back then, like the concept of game theory. But I have a model of human behavior that I utilize that takes into account my own decision making, how I decide based on inspiration, motivation, manipulation, balanced against time, effort, and risk. And I also have models of decisions that I've made on flowcharts in my mind with branches. And on these branches of flowcharts, I have probabilities that are based on an assessment of which branches I think would be more likely on a scale of 1 to 10 to provide a result that would be in the direction of good. So I was telling somebody else this story yesterday about decision making. The way I do it is I don't need to be right, but I try to basically create situations that over time I'm more right than wrong. So any individual decision may be bad or may not work out the way I imagine. But what I try to do is cross-functionally connect these decisions through a series of steps that are linked in different ways, so that if one branch goes wrong, I can keep going down a different branch and learn. And so based on the models of decisions I made and the disastrous things that have occurred in different situations, all because other people didn't behave the way I imagined they would. And this is game theory. This is learning about the game theory of human behavior. And just as a reflection of the areas that are most wrong for me, it falls into two categories. One is overconfidence in the facts, meaning believing that I know what the elements of the decision-making matrix are. And that is a lesson of perspective, is that it's easy to believe that I have the full perspective, especially with my way of thinking. Okay. But the reality is I don't know much, and nobody does. And this is especially true when assessing the motives of other people. Motives are hard to guess to begin with, unless you ask. a person. Like why, the why questions. Why did you buy? Even if you ask someone why they do something, they don't even know why, or they don't even give you the straight answer, or like they probably don't even know why. It's just whatever. Most people in this game theory thing, most people seem to be propelled by the pursuit of pleasure more than anything else. So, and that could be entertainment. It could be sex, could be drugs, alcohol, relaxation. And most often than not, just a reduction in anxiety. Is that my, so put it in that category. Most people that I know pursue things that reduce their anxiety or increase their pleasure before any other criteria of any other thing. And I've never really operated that way because I play the long game and know that those pursuits are temporary. So I'm going for like the lifetime of good vibes, not just an hour. And so, and I'm patient. So that's like an aspect of this decision-making matrix where I've been wrong, is not having the perspective of another person and not weighing that as much as it deserved to be weighed. Another area where I'm wrong in assessing other people's decisions with this matrix that I use, this model, is in addition to the one I just said, is self-awareness, is that my assessment of other people's behavior is based on some degree of like rational thought that like somehow deep down in the primitive limbic area of the brain, there is some kind of a logic. Okay, that logic will prevail eventually. And where I've been the most wrong is people that are insecure and make decisions based on ego instead of logic, and which is another way in terms of pleasure-seeking behavior to reduce anxiety because they would feel bad about themselves if they were wrong. These kinds of things. It's like assessing someone else's degree of self-confidence, anxiety, ego, alpha maleness, these kinds of things that are, I guess, foreign for me to grasp in terms of decision-making. There's areas I've been wrong about people, and that to some people, not being perceived as wrong at any cost is more valuable than like millions of dollars or relationships and these kinds of things. And so like that's like a very hard thing to model for me because it's not in my psychology. And then the third area of this that I've been the most wrong is trusting people that were not trustworthy. And I've learned a lot about that in the last few years. And in order for someone to be trustworthy to me, there's 4 components. There's dependable actions. There's reliable words. There's strength in a skill. And there's an agreement on shared values and principles, which is called integrity to the, to the shared values and principles. And the situations that I've been in where this fell apart is just not defining what the values and principles were in advance. And then everyone has a story about what was said and agreed and like whatever. And I just think like studying game theory and studying how people decide, how I decide, how everybody decides. Like, what are the basis? What's the basis of these decisions? And how can we improve the chances of success? Because most people want things to work out, except the people that have stolen from me over the years in different ways. They didn't want it to work out. They were like a one and done scenario. I had a good example. I was building a cabin in West Virginia, dream cabin. And I've been dreaming about this cabin since I was 15, and my cabin builder stole my money and then disappeared and then went to jail. And he did this to 30 other people, and then he died. And now the money's gone and I have no cabin. I have a driveway. And so that was an example of like, I believed that that was going to happen. I invested in it happening. I met this guy 4 times on the site, in the permit office, everything. And it was a complete con job. And so, like, I'm wrong, even with like this model of game theory, even with this understanding of human behavior and my own behavior. We are messy creatures, human beings. And I think game theory is a lot of statistics, and I only have my own experiences, which is not a big enough statistical model to cover all human behavior in every possible condition. So I'm often wrong, but I'm not surprised when I'm wrong. I just add it to the list. So, so what's coming up in the next couple episodes of this series is the games that I'm creating based on my models to create the world I imagine, the world where people live in harmony with the rest of nature. And that's coming up next.